And I think that what Gordon Sondland was trying to do here was protect himself more than he is to protect anybody else. To a certain degree, he took out the bus and he ran over President Trump, Vice President Pence, Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, Rudy Giuliani, Mick Mulvaney. He implicates all of them. And one of the things he's at pains to say is this wasn't a rogue operation. I wasn't a freelancer. Everybody knew. Everybody was in the loop on this. He certainly makes it clear that in the direct conversations he has with the president, he saw a conditionality here, and he very much saw Rudy Giuliani as a personal agent and the person that the president was directing them to talk to on the specific issue of aid. He says, and he was quite insistent on this, I was never told by the president that aid was conditioned on this, but I added up 2 and 2 and got to 4. I suspect that the Republicans are going to challenge his math skill. As a reporter, it seems to me we have to go to what the headline is today, and the headline is that Gordon Sondland, one of the 3 amigos, perhaps the one who had the most direct contact with Donald Trump, says in his opening statement, was there a quid pro quo with regard to the requested White House call and White House meeting? The answer is yes. He says that President Trump wanted a public statement from President Zelensky committing to investigations of Burisma and the 2016 elections. We all understood that these prerequisites for the White House call and the White House meeting reflected President Trump's desires and requirements. So there seems to have been no doubt whatsoever among the people who were closest, and I thought Sondland made a very powerful argument. It wasn't just the 3 amigos. It was Secretary of State Pompeo. It was Vice President Pence. Of course, he denies that. Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, that they were all on the same page, and they all understood that the president wanted this announcement of these investigations before he was going to agree, at the very least, to a meeting. And then there's also the question of the military aid. He couldn't have been more clear about that.
This is Fox News' Chris Wallace preemptively reciting the facts about Gordon Sondland's testimony to the House Intel Committee, at least until the primetime hosts come on and begin running cover for the president. But the simple fact is that no matter how much damage control the right might try to do, this testimony was absolutely devastating to the president. Gordon Sondland says outright that there was indeed a quid pro quo.
I know that members of this committee frequently frame these complicated issues in the form of a simple question. Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
He says that the public announcement of an investigation into Joe Biden was a condition to release the aid to Ukraine.
In the absence of any credible explanation for the suspension of aid, I later came to believe that the resumption of security aid would not occur until there was a public statement from Ukraine committing to the investigations of the 2016 elections and Burisma, as Mr. Giuliani had demanded.
He says that all of their actions with regard to Ukraine were done at the direction of the president.
So we followed the president's orders.
He admits that it was never about corruption, but rather just the announcement of the investigation.
He had to get those 2 investigations if that official act was going to take place, correct?
He had to announce the investigations. He didn't actually have to do them, as I understood it.
And he implicates a slew of administration officials in the process.
Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret. Everyone was informed via email on July 19th, days before the presidential call. As I communicated to the team, I told President Zelensky in advance that assurances to run a fully transparent investigation and turn over every stone were necessary in his call with President Trump.
So yes, he did throw everyone under the bus, but rightfully so. Because while we've come to expect the entire GOP to risk everything for Trump, there's absolutely zero reason to do so. First, Trump wouldn't return the favor. He will discard of someone the second he doesn't have any use for them anymore. He'd give up Don Jr. if it meant he could save himself. But second, and more importantly, he is accountable. Trump was in charge of this entire extortion scheme, so the notion that anyone else should go down for him, to risk getting thrown in prison and sacrificing their careers and seeing their families and watching their kids grow up, is ludicrous. It was Trump who appointed Giuliani to demand that these sham investigations move forward. It was Trump who ordered his team to work with Giuliani Giuliani. It was Trump who ordered the aid frozen. It was Trump who finally released the aid only after the whistleblower complaint incriminating him was delivered to Congress, which in and of itself is a tacit admission. I get that Trump likes to take full credit for everything good and zero credit for everything bad, but whether he can manage to comprehend this concept or not, the buck stops with him. At this point, the only people refusing to accept the truth are a small faction of Republican lawmakers. And for what? Is approving judges and guarding their tax cut really worth destroying the foundations of our democracy? To cling onto their tenuous grip on power just a little longer, rather than dumping this criminal helming the ship and mending their deeply broken image? Especially considering that we're at a time when Trump's endorsement is toxic, when Republicans have lost seats in deep red states and districts in Kentucky, Alabama, Utah, Kansas, Texas, Georgia, Arizona, Virginia, and Florida, when half of Trump's inner circle is literally sitting in jail, where a majority of Americans already agree that Trump's behavior warrants impeachment and removal from office. Is this really the best time to hitch their wagons to him? Apparently so, which could not reflect worse for a Republican Party at their lowest point in history. Although to their credit, at least they're consistent with their poor judgment.